All right. Okay. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Ooh, you know what? Let me make sure I have all my settings. Camera problem. Yes. Realize there is a camera problem. Let me see. Microphone, speakers. Yes. Okay. All right. Hi. How's it going, everybody? Let me see here. I close that. Okay. All right. All right. So, yes, it's my birthday. Woohoo. So, I figured I would come on and do a stream. Why not? What the hell? And I have a little bit of a cold that I'm still fighting off. I thought I was done with it, but it's another cold. Let me see. I've been having problems trying to get people the link. Let me see. I'm going to try to post the link in the chat box. So let me know if you have a problem with it. So there's the link. Let me know if you have a problem with it. And maybe what I can do is those of you who I'm following on Twitter or Facebook, I can post it in Twitter or Facebook and invite you that way. So try that link and let me see if it works for you. I know I've been having problems with the Google Hangouts. So yes. So how is everybody? Who we got? We got Jinzo in here. Hey, Jinzo. We got Dragon SD. Dragon SD. Okay. Not familiar with you. So hello. How are you? Let me see. Who else do we have? Where's, dang it? Hit a window. There we go. And who else we got? Nidra Rosemoon. Hello. How are you? Chaos Candle. How's it going? Art Yun Freeman. How's it going? Pixie Doo. Hey, Pixie Doo. And Comedic Witchcraft. Hey, Comedic. There's Zabora. And Kenny. Hey, Kenny. How are you? And Lady Witch. Hey, Lady Witch. How are you? So if anybody wants to join, click that link. And hey, did you click the link?
Yep.
Okay, so it did work. Okay, good. I was having problems with it before.
Birth.
What?
It's what I write to everyone. I just write in huge capital letters, birth.
Birth. Okay.
Yes, that's how I say happy birthday.
I usually say happy successfully exiting your mother's womb day.
I say this is the only time it's like, great job, you came out of your mom's vagina, fantastic.
It was a success.
Experiment success.
Well, some of them aren't successes, so.
Ooh. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. So how you doing? I haven't talked to you for a while.
I've been doing pretty good. There's been a lot of stuff going on. I now have two different pagan groups who I'm going in between in terms of talking to, because they each have their own different night that they meet on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been pretty good. And school, I'm nearly done with that.
So I'm sorry. So the two different pagan groups you're involved in, what two things are?
I have a coffee social, and then I have a meetup at the library. The group that meets up at the library, we recently had a Yule celebration. So yeah, and it was funny because someone brought a cake that was like super red and like definitely a satanic cake, because we're an eclectic group, and so we do have Satanists. And it was like I think it was like chocolate with strawberry filling or something, and it accidentally got flipped on the ground, and we felt real bad.
So out of curiosity, what made it a satanic cake?
I think the only thing was that the person who brought it said it was a satanic cake, and it also had the reverse pentagram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't really know what made it a satanic cake.
Right. I guess they just called it, so it became it.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is. You know how it is. You have a glass of liquid in a cup. If do you presuppose that it's water even though it might actually be vodka? Naming a necessity. It's an important tool
Right,
in
right,
our
right,
understanding.
right. Yeah, yeah, I understand. I understand. I was just curious what made it a satanic
Yeah.
cake.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, we usually the way that it works with any of our gatherings is that we do potlucks.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's the potluck thing. There's the entire ritual itself, which we both recorded for Facebook as well as at some other things. So I might have to take a look at that because I think I looked at it and like I'm literally blocked by someone, which is fine because I'm like, I don't know if I want to be on camera quite yet.
Hmm. And then what about the other group?
The other group is my coffee social, and um, that's actually the group that I have when it comes to Samhain. And I actually had we had a really fun Samhain because it was a combination of um our usual get together, a lot of reflection. We had our ceremony, of course, and then we also had a silent auction.
Hmm,
So, and I won some pretty good stuff at the silent auction, to be real honest.
nice.
Yeah, there was an entire herb basket of herbs, so I had to get my hands on that.
Hmm. That sounds
Yeah.
like fun.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
so. But what's are they? Do the dates conflict when you meet, or what's conflicting?
No. Well, it's not really much of a conflicting thing. The only thing that's going to be conflicting is how well it fits in with my school schedule.
Oh, I see.
And I recently decided with the new year I was going to actually try and exercise properly.
Hmm.
So there's that. But in the most basic sense, one is on Tuesday and one is on Wednesday. So
So back.
that's, yeah, back to back, which is fine.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like
How's
it's working out, but you're going to school full time too. So yeah, it's
yeah.
the time constraints because you have to have time to sort of decompress and also do homework.
Yep. Yep. How have you been doing?
Uh, Doing okay except for being sick. And
Oh,
yeah, and then then we got the other channel, the Heathen Haven, which has been fun, but we took Christmas and New Year's off.
mm.
So that was fun. And just really just not very motivated to do videos for the past like month. It's really been frustrating. It's kind of like
It's the
just,
winter blues.
yeah, I don't know what it is. If it's the winter blues or what it is, but I just like really just trying to really get myself motivated to do videos. And that's like, I have one video where I've recorded the audio like three times already, and I just can't. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Hopefully, it's a slump. Hopefully, I'll get out of it soon. But that's
I hope so too. Your content's absolutely wonderful.
no. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I also like to. I like I like to have fun when I'm making the videos, and so hopefully, when I have fun with them, other people have fun watching them. And when I'm not like feeling excited about the video, it reflects. You know what I mean? It's like when people watch it, they
Yeah.
kind of go, "Oh yeah, it's because they don't enjoy it." So that's why I hate being in these slumps. That's why I have such a hard time sticking to any kind of a schedule. Like I really
Hmm.
admire people who like put out a video every single day. It's like, how the fuck do you do that? How do you put out a
A lot of
video
the
every
times,
day?
it's reaction channels and gaming channels, and those ones have high quality, low editing, so it's a lot easier to pump them out because they don't require a lot of editing to do.
Yeah, but there's some people who actually put a lot of editing into it, and maybe are even just like recording like a series. and
Yeah.
they do it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can see how that would definitely factor into it because the amount of time you work on the video, but it still seems like they are able to pump out a video every day, and it's just like, wow, how the hell do they manage to do that? So I don't know.
Yes. And the other fun news is that I've been slowly gathering my collection of books, and I now have 2 books from Buckland and 3 books from Cunningham, and I'm excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually got into Buckland and Cunningham later on, uh, in my well, I mean, after I had been studying for a while. So I don't know. A lot of people get really excited about Buckland and Cunningham, but I don't think there's anything wrong with their stuff. I mean, I look back at like especially Buckland's Big Blue Book, and I go, "Oh, this is handy. This is good." And I also like Scott Cunningham, but I don't know. I'm not. They're not like if I was going to give somebody a list of like the top 10 books, I don't think either one of those books would make it.
Yeah. Like I have both the Big Blue and Big Red books
Hmm.
for Buckland. And the actually funny thing, the Blue Book was actually one of the things that I won in the silent auction.
Hmm.
So I got that, and it is my baby. And I sometimes I just like sit down and hold one of my books, and I'm just like, I love my books.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that I've learned from other groups of people, and it's a really important thing that I've thought about in terms of my philosophy, especially because I know that you're someone who follows a traditional route, and I follow more of an eclectic route. And
Mhm.
so, one of the things that I've learned with eclecticism is that um, a book is only a fingerprint of someone's. They are not the end all be all of anything. They can be a really helpful guide, though.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think it's you kind of have to put it into a balance.
Yeah.
Like I understand the desire to be eclectic and sort of explore one's own path, and I think that's definitely the independent nature that seems to permeate almost every pagan path. Regardless of who you are or what you
Yeah.
identify with, there's definitely a strong sense of independence, and we're going to do it our way, and we're doing it for us. And I understand
And
that
then,
that independence. However, I sometimes also feel like sometimes people sort of not really neglect, but they sort of maybe discount wisdom of the people who've actually been around for a while. And I'm talking about like people who've written books, and even like Raymond Buckland
oh,
and
yeah.
that, who've been around for a while and have some experience and some knowledge. And it's so basically what I'm saying is it seems like there's more weight placed on this independent nature than there is on like what people can learn from other people who've been around for a while. And I think there has to be a balance between those two. I think it's
And
it's kind of like
that's,
it's kind of like, let's say, studying under a teacher who is an artist, for example, like a painter.
mhm.
So you once you kind of learn their tricks and how they do things, and you study under them for a while, then you sort of branch out and do your own thing. That's kind of how I see it.
And I totally understand with that because I didn't really start looking into paganism until I found my first book, which means that I do have an understanding that you need to have both a resource of independence with
Mhm.
books alongside it as well, and they need to be at the very least in equal parts.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there are actually quite a few things with Cunningham that I actually agree with in terms of, for example, you have I've been reading a guide for the solitary practitioner as of late, and I've one of the big things that I remember is the instruments and the types of associations, And I had never understood what would work with water, and then I figured out that it was more metallic type of instruments, metallic percussion such as bells, like not like bells as in like wind bells, but like chimes.
Mm-hmm.
You have chimes, you have the triangle, you have basically anything that makes it sound by striking metal. Versus earth sounds, which are things like your timpani drums, your basically any type of drum where you're hitting like a membrane.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very important thing because I've used a lot of instruments, but I don't use a ton of of instruments in my entourage, and in terms of making myself go more into that trance state, I need to focus a little bit more on different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because those do help me.
Yeah, let me see. So I had a question here. Okay, so Comedic Witchcraft says, "Hey, Lilokin, does being surrounded by so many eclectic Wiccans on YouTube bother you at all?" I don't know. I don't think it does. I think that what bothers me, well, I think occasionally what bothers me is I get this sense that like Wicca is sort of like this beginning point, or it's kind of like an afterthought, or something that people study but they're not really serious about it, or they kind of take it like it's I don't think they really take it quite too serious because it's been around for so long, and I think that it's what everybody practices and everybody writes about and everybody studies. But unfortunately, a lot of what that is really eclectic, which there's nothing wrong with it. But it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, Kenny, about how it's people's interpretation of their path. It's kind of like it's sort of like a reflection of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that, but quote unquote traditional Wicca is part of a lineage, part of a tradition that is supposed to be passed on. And so it should match up. It should be like you should be able to go. Obviously, this isn't true, but you should be able to, like, let's say, pick up an Alexandrian Wiccan out of England, and plop them down into a coven in Oklahoma City, and as they're going through the ritual, there should be some things that are very similar. And to a certain extent, there are, but there's differences. So even in a traditional sense, there's been changes that have evolved just naturally how they do. Mm-hmm. So I don't really get frustrated being around eclectic Wiccans as much as I feel like there are some people, not all people, but some people who don't quite understand exactly what Wicca is, its history, and don't really take it too seriously. That's the only thing that bothers me. Other than that, I don't really care. I think that you should be able to practice whatever you want to practice, and it should appeal. I mean, what's the point of practicing something that doesn't appeal to you? It just doesn't.
It's like it's like being a pagan and being told you have to go to a Catholic church. It just doesn't work.
It's kind of like, wait a second, no, I don't want to go to church. I
don't want to go to church. Yeah, let me go out into the woods. Just leave me alone.
And also, before I forget, Tuesday gave me a $5 birthday present. So thank you so much, Tuesday.
Woohoo!
No, I have the best viewers on YouTube, I think. I'm serious, I do.
No, I totally agree.
Any problems with them, or they never attack people in the chat. I mean, they're just decent people. They're awesome.
Yeah, usually when it comes to your YouTubers, the first people to comment on your videos are like, "Hi, it's good to see you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're always, sometimes I just, I'll be sitting there working on a video or something. I'll be all frustrated, and then I'll see the little message pop up. And, it'll be like, for example, one earlier was, uh, who was it? I think shoot, I can't remember her name. But then yeah, it popped up, and I went and read the message, and she was saying something nice, and I was like, oh wow, that's good, you know. And it was nice to actually read something that was a nice comment. It was Misty Dawn. That's who it was, Misty Dawn.
I think I remember one of the best things is that my fiance Ben recently he's been really interested in watching people debunk flat earthers, and I showed him your flat earth the flat earth stuff that you had been doing, and we were just like sitting there with popcorn and like laughing because it's so great. It's so great.
Yeah, flat earthers are just, I mean, they're just so the things that they come up with. Like, I think the video that you're talking about is the guy who said that there's no curvature of the earth, thus the earth is flat.
I think I've been watching a variety of different people debunking these things, and like I think the more specific thing is if someone were to walk in a straight line 6 miles on a flat part of the earth, um if you were 6 miles away from that person and you tried to look at them, you should not be able to see them over the horizon. And I'm like, that would be true if it wasn't for the fact that there are varying depths of sea level here.
Right, exactly. Well, he was using, yeah, exactly. He was using Aristophanes' math to measure the curvature of the Earth, and so he was saying that yeah, if you went out for like X amount of distance, you wouldn't be able to see somebody on a flat surface. But he doesn't understand it. First of all, that's at a height point, and that you would still be able to see the person.
Yeah, especially because the way that light bends around the earth through the atmosphere it's wacky.
Yeah. And then also the other thing he said was, okay, so if you go up to a certain point and you look all the way around, the ground is completely level, eye level. It's like looks straight. And so it's like, yeah, but that's because if you're standing on top of a sphere and you
Of a
look all the
ball,
way
a
out,
beach ball.
right? Well, yeah, he was saying the beach ball, but you would see the edge of the edge of the earth would look like a straight line. It's just that it's all a matter of his perspective. It's how he sees things, and it's like, yes, but you understand that our own senses are not all that great sometimes when we have to think about stuff that's outside of ourselves. It's like that's
Oh my
actually the
god.
last thing.
It's the most amazing thing to watch people like, yes, this is how it works. I know what I'm talking about. Like, no you don't.
And the funniest thing is, like, so if you tell them, well, what about people who, NASA astronauts who've gone up to the space station? They think that that's all faked. They think that NASA spends like an outrageous amount of money on CGI to make all these things fake, and that all the lenses on like the laboratory up the NASA laboratory, whatever it's called, I forget what it's called, but they use fisheye lenses, and it's like
Do they
they
think
just
that the
have an
moon
excuse for every single thing.
do they think that like the moon landing was fake or
Oh yeah, of
something?
course, yes, yeah. They think that
Well, I
was
mean,
done in yeah. They
well,
think that
here's
was done on a movie set back in the
here's the
60s.
question. Like, they think that it was done like on a movie set in the 60s by Stanley Kubrick. I'm thinking to myself, how, first off, why would Stanley Kubrick do that? Number two, we have a mirror you can shine a laser at and it will reflect back onto Earth.
Hmm.
So like you'll just end up with this like, it's like, how did the mirror get on the moon then? Please explain that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they probably got an excuse for that, but it's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's like with all any conspiracy theory. It's like any if you any rational thought you give them to like question their own information, they have an answer for it. And it just gets more and more complex the farther you ask them questions. So some of these people are under the impression that every single NASA scientist is part of this conspiracy. Every scientist is part of this conspiracy. Every airline pilot is part of this conspiracy. All traffic air controllers are part. I mean, it's just so insane the amount of people who would be under some kind of a payroll to stay silent.
There was some person who made a Facebook group that was like Flat Earthers Anonymous or something like that. And like, I'm not even joking, their slogan is reaching out to flat earthers across the globe. And someone wrote back, I'm sorry, could you say that again? Please say that a bit slower.
Exactly. They don't understand their own irony. It's the same thing with people who believe like there's some kind of a satanic cult going around, kidnapping people and sacrificing them to Satan. It's like, well, what about why don't you take it to the police? Oh, well, the police are involved too. It's like, okay, well, why don't you take it to the FBI? Oh no, the FBI is involved in it too. Okay, what about the CIA? Oh no, the CIA is involved. It's like, okay, what about the government? It's like, oh no, the government's involved too. Okay, take it to the UN. Oh, like, the UN.
The only quote unquote satanic group that I can think of that like close to matching that description is the Order of the Nine Angles, and they almost don't exist anymore.
The Order of the Nine Angels does not exist. They never existed. That's complete. Yeah. That's bullshit, and people have run with it.
Oh my god. Yeah. I was like, I bet at some point someone was writing about it, maybe, but like the idea of it is just ridiculous. Like, okay, the people who are worthy of being sacrificed are bad politicians and people who try to stop them. Like, what?
It's really funny because, okay, so on one hand they have people like they believe that there's like this satanic group going around, kidnapping people and making human sacrifices and then disposing of the bodies and basically getting away with it, covering it up. And
sounds like some jigsaw shit,
right? But then on the other hand, if you ever ask them for evidence, what they do is they give you these cases of like these kids, and these kids get hopped up on meth and kill somebody and put 666 and a pentagram on their body, and then they say, oh, well, here's proof of satanic ritual, or satanic rituals going on. But you would just started off telling me how there's a satanic organization that's infiltrated the police and the FBI and CIA, and they're not being found because they cover up everything. And yet here you are showing these kids that have absolutely nothing to do with anybody, no part of, no cult, no Order of Nine Angels or whatever, and they're doing this stuff, but they're not. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, and like
one beat on the other.
What's really funny is that I remember in I think there was the whole thing with the 10 Commandments in Oklahoma, and some guy drove over the statue and he claimed to have been doing it for Satan. And when his mom was questioned about like her son's actions, she was like, he would never do that. He's a good Christian man. I'm like, normally the people who are like so brazenly like, I am crazy Satanist blarg, are usually like people who don't have any idea what Satanism is, and more often than not they're Christians playing pretend.
Right, yeah, and they're just psychos, they're just psychos that they're not really, they're just, I don't know, they're just crazy, they're just insane. And they're actually doing some kind of thing that they believe Satanists would do, or they're
and
trying to.
It really does bring harm on the Satanist community, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because
Well,
then the Satanists get a bad rep for had absolutely nothing to do with it.
right, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that a lot of that has been as a lot of that, especially like the satanic panic that happened in the 80s and 90s. I think a lot of that has gone away. But especially with the rise of the internet, there's a lot of people who are starting to peddle this stuff again because it's a new sort of format. Before it was kind of like print and radio shows and television shows, and then they found out it's all bullshit. But now they can just create a YouTube channel and nobody can really challenge them, and they can get on there and say whatever they want to say. And so that's I'm seeing a rise in it, but a rise in the platform rather than the events of what are going on.
Yeah, and I've noticed that like there's been an increasing amount of evangelism lately, and it's kind of freaking me out here in the Midwest.
Hmm.
Like I started seeing more billboards pop up along the road.
Mhm.
So I'm a little concerned because like the areas in which I saw them, they're like college towns. So I'm like, ooh, that's not good.
Right,
I'm
right.
like I'm like getting really uncomfortable because most of them are like pro-life sort of stuff. And
Oh,
I'm not knocking pro-life people. Like I know that there are some convincing arguments that are non-religious that are pro-life, but at the same time that's not how I am.
well, oh, yeah, okay. I mean, my position on that is you're always pro-life, but
Yeah.
pro-choice, is you need to have that choice. You need to have that option. And that's the thing that gets me. And there's different states have different time periods, but up to a certain point, like if you go into your eighth semester or eighth month of a pregnancy, you can't get an abortion. It's because
Oh
it's
yeah.
just too late. You have to do it within a certain time frame, depending upon which state you're in.
It's
But
funny because like the people who are so adamantly opposed to the idea of getting abortions actually have a doctrine that actually allows for like partial birth abortions, technically speaking. So it drives me insane.
right, and yeah, so I mean, if people, yeah, so I mean, you still have to have a choice. You have to have pro-choice. If you find out you get pregnant and you want to carry the
You want to keep the
baby,
baby,
yeah,
then
then
you should be allowed to.
right, exactly. But on the opposite side, if you are a woman and you get pregnant and you realize that you're not in any position to have a child, you should have the right to have an abortion. you
Hmm.
know and I think we should really encourage that, because let's face it, there are some people in this world who are not going to make good parents
Yeah, there are
for
people
whatever
who can't
reason.
make good parents. There are people who aren't ready for parenthood.
Yeah,
They might be excellent parents, but they're not ready.
right, exactly. And having a child is a pretty big responsibility. I had a coworker of mine who he and his wife wanted to adopt a child. They had to go through, I think, about a year and a half of all of the stuff. They had to prove that they could be good parents. They had enough money. They were stable. They were mentally healthy. They had to do all of this stuff just to
Oh
adopt
yeah.
a child. It took like a year and a half. But if you're a woman and you're living in a trailer park and you get knocked up and you want to have a kid,
You
no
get to have a
problem.
kid.
Yeah, go for it. Have no the father. Where's the father? Oh, he's somewhere. Okay. You don't have any means to support yourself, let alone a child. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. You can have a kid. So
And of course, the
it's
people who are totally like, no, the life of the baby is something that is sacred, and we should like the whole like pro-life thing. I think it's more pro-fetus because after the baby's born, then they really don't give a freaking heck about like what happens to the family. Like they won't do anything in terms of supporting the mothers after that point.
Mhm.
Because, like, they'll be like, oh, wait, it's like, oh, you need to keep your baby because it's sacred. And then after the baby's born, oh, you want to get support for you and your child? You're a freaking freeloader. Like, that's the kind of attitude that they generally tend to have with that. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah, but it's not a they're not actually thinking about the human beings involved. They're actually
Yeah.
it's just because of they believe it's in their Bible. It's
It's,
because they're promoting their religion. That's all it is. They're not actually worried about the human beings involved in that. Because if they were, they would be more concerned about our educational system. They'd be more concerned about making sure that the family unit is stronger, that the
yeah.
family unit not only just includes like the man and the woman, but also the,
Mm-hmm.
or the that the people are in, making sure that there's access to decent health care,
Mm-hmm.
low, entry level jobs where people can get into jobs where they don't have to go to a 4-year college and get a degree. It's just there's all kinds of stuff that if they really were concerned about human beings, they would actually be working on those issues rather than, just like, oh, you can't have an abortion because it says so in my Bible, where it doesn't say that in the Bible.
I'm just like, in fact, it completely contradicts that. There's a book, there's a chapter in Numbers that specifically talks about getting an abortion with God's intervening. So,
Yeah, but that's not how God meant for us to interpret it. You see.
oh, oh boy, do I have some words about that. Like, first off, if we're gonna talk, like, if anyone's ever like, oh, that's not how God meant to interpret it, I'm like, I got someone sources from someone who is a rabbinic scholar. I'm pretty sure they know more about the Old Testament than you do.
Yeah, but there's only certain Bible passages that you're supposed to take literal. The rest of them are all, up to your own interpretation.
Well, I mean, how literal can if a woman is suspected of being pregnant, take her to the priest, he'll have her drink this horrible mixture, and if the baby was not hers, she if the baby was not yours, then her womb will rot and the fetus will discharge. Like, what about that is interpretable? I'm pretty sure that's pretty damn clear.
Exactly. Exactly.
But like,
Yeah, but
I've been
go ahead.
thinking about like starting up, like trying to get like some people together to do like something that the Bible Reloaded did with their atheist Bible study, and just having like a pagan Bible study, like,
Hmm.
because like I haven't seen any of those on YouTube, and I'm just like, this might be interesting. Get another perspective out there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's something you could do.
And what's funny is that a surprising, I recently had to take my Abrahamic religions course, and one of the things that I figured out was because of the influence of Greek at the time, a lot of the Roman Catholics' imagery of God looks like Zeus.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it, even like the rod that he has in his hand.
Oh, really?
Yes. The only thing is they changed the lightning bolt to a cross, obviously, but it's
You mean the scepter?
oh yeah, the scepter. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
because like being raised Roman, a lot of imagery, so um, I got to see a lot of that. Our church was plastered with that on the ceilings,
Hmm.
so I remember that scepter imagery,
Right.
and I talked to someone about that, and they were like, "Yeah, that's actually more likely to be a depiction of Zeus." Frankly, I'm like, "That's very interesting."
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. I mean, it's really
yeah.
interesting when you start looking at all the translations that the Bible has gone through and how those translations ended up shaping how different passages were interpreted and then rewritten by other scholars. You know, and so I mean, Bible study is a whole it's a whole study unto itself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be something to do. That'd be interesting. Do you watch the Hugo and Jake's Bible Reloaded series?
I've been watching that. I've been watching a lot of the movie reviews, which is where I'm getting my holy shit thing from.
Mm-hmm.
Although I've been laboring for quite a time to only get resources that they haven't reviewed yet.
Mm.
So, like, because right now I'm still working on the script for Miracle Man, which, no joke, is the worst Christian movie I've ever seen. It got me evicted.
It got you evicted.
I drank 12 shots of whipped cream vodka and I puked and I tried to vacuum it up with the vacuum. And then I had to get the person I was living with a new vacuum, and she was like, "You gotta move." And I'm like, "Okay."
Wow. Huh. Well,
Honestly, I don't regret that night.
well, I saw their they did some movie review of Chuck Norris in some kind of a movie, and it was hilarious.
That's what, the Bells of Freedom or something?
It was something. It was somehow they were stuck in this town that was like, like it turned out it was like purgatory. It was like not quite hell, not quite heaven.
This sounds like Chuck Norris trying to do Children of the Corn.
Yeah, that's what it was. I can't remember the name of it, but Chuck Norris's son was in it.
Yeah, and it
And
was really weird because, like, every time Chuck Norris's son is in it, Chuck Norris is just like using him as a mouthpiece, and it's really frustrating. I'm like, Chuck Norris's brother, you need to look at your brother, take a good long look at him, and realize that he is using you.
yeah, but, I can't remember the name of this movie, but Hugo and Jake they did a review of it, and it was hilarious. It was
Oh my god. Surprisingly, one of the ones that I want to see that I think, I'm not sure whether or not I want to put it in holy shit or like a category for decent movies.
Mhm.
Um it's a movie called uh I think it's Time, it's it's like yeah, it's Time Changer,
Hmm.
and it actually has good special effects, but right now the one that I'm working on is I have Miracle Man, and then I'm doing one of the full video dramas from the 2017 Jehovah's Witness uh convention.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's gonna be fun.
And have you ever seen their what is it uh, my memory's so bad. The one where it's the Bible Man series was good.
Oh yeah, the Bible Man series is good. I feel kind of bad because I'm trying to find a Christian store near me because they usually have those videos there, and all the ones that I'm finding are closed or are closing down,
Mm.
and it kind of frustrates me because I'm like, I want my Bible Man, damn it.
Yeah, those shows are just those are they're just
Oh,
too
it's so corny.
yeah.
It's cornier than 60s Batman.
Yeah. Well, but the '60s Batman, that's what they wanted to do. They
Yeah,
wanted that to be corny.
yeah, but you can't do 60s Batman in the 90s. You have to do it in the 60s. It doesn't work if it's in the 90s.
Right. Well, I mean,
Because in the
a show like that, it they played off of that, you know. They made it more corny. And if it's supposed to be corny, I think that's something. But the Bible Man, I don't think is meant to be corny. I think they were being serious with it. They really wanted to make some kind of a superhero, and
like
I
I
just don't
said,
get they're trying to be corny.
I'm thinking about doing this holy shit series, and I'll probably have like different people. Well, I'll probably have different people on the holy shit series. I might ask you for one, but I'll wait until a decent one comes. But the
Hmm.
thing that I'm going after Miracle Man is called Remember the Wife of Lot. And it is like no joke. They
Right.
decided that during part of this, there's like an entire sequence in which a woman is depicted turning into a pillar of salt,
Right.
and I'm not even joking. It is shot like an R-rated horror movie from Hollywood. I I'm not kidding. They even have like CG salt crystals growing on her face and things. I'm just like, what the heck? This is not okay.
Yeah. Well, just as a side note, so the name's Junkie in the chat, who is somebody who I did a collaborative with, and I'm looking forward to seeing that video come out pretty soon. But he was asking me about my devil icon. So when my channel first came out, it was called Lilocan Scathach, and that was the name of my channel. But people really didn't quite understand it. It was just like a weird name, and they didn't understand it. And so I got the idea for Hellbound Heathen. So I changed my channel name to Hellbound Heathen. And when I also changed it, I also decided to change my icon. And so I got this devil figure and changed it and put him on a card, and for copyright reasons and all that, just in case. I don't know who created the drawing, but it's not my artwork. But I altered it enough that it became like my own image. So that's what I did. And the reason for that was because there were a lot of people I was talking to who were calling me a heathen who was going to go to hell and all this stuff. And I was on Poisoning the Well once, or not on it, but watching their show, and they always called people Hellbound Heathens. And I go, hey, that's a perfect name for me, Hellbound Heathen. And so that's how the icon came about.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so much easier than Lilocan Scathach, because people can't pronounce it, they don't know what it means, and so they kind of have a good understanding. Hellbound Heathen, okay, it's I think it's easier for people to say, and also they kind of have an idea of what the channel's going to be.
Yeah.
So, and Sean Hendricks, happy birthday, thanks. Oh yes, everybody who's been wishing me happy birthday, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. As soon as that video comes out, I'm not too sure, maybe next week. But I'll mirror it and put it up on my channel. It was a lot of fun working with him to create this video. And he's got a fun channel too himself. He does a lot of rants and video responses, but video response to other ranters. So kind of like what I do, but not quite as not making fun of people as much.
It's okay to be irreverent, frankly. I think it's important to be irreverent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. And then just trying to get through this one freaking video. Keep recording the audio because I want to put it out this Wednesday. And so weekends is really when I have the time to work on videos. So
yeah.
But I definitely wanted to come on and have I haven't had a hangout like this for a long time.
Yeah.
So what are you going to school for?
I'm currently doing English and religious studies double major, so yeah.
Okay. And what are you gonna do with that?
Right now I'm looking into some work in both possibly some spiritual counseling fields, perhaps maybe some writing fields and arts and entertainment. And then I think the other thing I had in mind was possibly writing some literature for the Unitarian Universalist Church.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because I am, I guess, unofficially part of the Cups group over there, because a lot of the sponsored things like the Samhain Gathering occasionally go through the UU Church here. So generally speaking, they're currently looking for literature about LGBT stuff and spirituality. So I might actually go into some detail with that.
Hmm.
So that would be good.
Yeah, that's nice there. So, yeah, the Unitarian churches are really nice because they're almost always pagan friendly, and like they'll let you use spaces to have like meetings or do little rituals and stuff. So it's really cool. I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. Because when I was growing up, we were not very religious, but we would go to Unitarian churches. So
Mm. Yeah, that's what's really nice about it is that when you live in a family that's not super religious or at the very least is pretty open about religious ideas, it's a little bit less scary to feel like a lot of the people who go into go into witchcraft or go into paganism and they come out and they say, oh, it was awful, blah, blah, blah. Usually there were people who were raised in very religious settings to begin with, and so their aversion to it comes at a response. But for people who are generally modernist, um, generally, generally, the more open your family is to you exploring that, the easier it is for you to transition. Now,
yeah,
there are definitely exceptions.
yeah. And I think a lot of those people, I don't think they really went into it with the right intentions. I think they sort of, I don't really think that they went into it to be really, I don't think they were really looking for a path. They were looking for some reason to sort of, have something against pagan religions. That's what I think.
I mean, I think the reason why, for example, Bill claims to have gone into it, um, just from his personality and from his supposed experiences, I genuinely think he might have been trying to start a cult.
Probably so.
His
Probably so.
personality, his personality screams cult leader.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, because
Hey,
like,
Animist, how's it going?
yeah.
Hey, happy birthday.
Hey, thank you very much.
I've got to play with the screens a little bit and then I'll get back to you.
No problem. No problem. So yeah, I mean, yeah, from what I understand about Bill Schnoblin is he was very much a controlling sort of, he knew everything and he liked to take on the role of yeah, I mean he's definitely very cultish, you know. And again, that's kind of like circling back to how we started this conversation, I mean, pagans and witches and people who study, you know, paganism, we're very independent. And anytime we have anybody who sort of kind of stands up and says, "Hey, you have to follow me and you have to listen to me," we tend to sort of, you know, raise our middle finger to them and go off and do whatever it is that we want to do.
Yeah, especially because if you go into a pagan group expecting to be controlling, you're gonna have very little chances.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like water, the tighter you try to hold on to it, the more that it runs away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. so, so yeah, I mean, so he just from the people who were around when he was around in Boston, it's just they just have horrible stories about him. He was just really sexually inappropriate, just controlling,
It
just wanted to be, like the leader, and just a really horrible individual.
it doesn't help that he's currently living, if I recall correctly, approximately less than 2 hours away from me.
Oh wow. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about
No,
that.
no, it's okay. Iowa is a pretty shitty state, frankly. Actually, that's
Mhm.
not true. I live in the area where uh and Captain Crunch is made, so I'm pretty happy.
Well, that kind of explains why evangelicals are spreading in your area.
Oh yeah. And that kind of weirds me out. Like I've been like one of my favorite games to play with like YouTubers is figure out what religion they are. And like with Bill, I can't tell what specific type of Christianity he is.
You know, he hasn't been on Now You See TV for quite some time. I wonder if there was some little spat or some little falling out that happened between them.
Maybe he died.
No, he didn't die. He's still alive.
Oh.
Yeah.
It could be that he got enough bad publicity from people like you that he was no longer a viable asset to the organization. I mean, you really did a number on him and exposed his whole history and shit.
Yeah.
As far as his religion, it's pure narcissism.
It is.
Oh yeah.
It's all about him. But I was thinking that he like he probably got into it with them, telling them that they're not, pure Christians. They're not the quote unquote right Christians. And they were just like, you know what? Fuck you. Get the hell out of here.
He might have even been trying to be like, I'm going to be the leader now.
Yeah, could have been.
I think they're all too cynical and aware of their own bullshit to really have an ideological fallout. Maybe a stylistic fallout, like which angle should we push to get the most followers or donators or people to our kind of whatever little conventions they sell people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. They'd have to have actually some kind of a core belief that they really adhere to.
I was about to say that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. But he hasn't done a video on witches for quite some time, which is kind of nice. He did one little stupid video on what was it? Some holiday, some Catholic holiday coming up, and he was trying to tie it to Satanism. And I watched the video for like 5 minutes, and I was just like, you know what? This is just too dumb. And, there's no way I could even do a response to it because it's absolutely 100% pure bullshit. You know what I mean? So
self-parody.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like up my alley, frankly.
Well, maybe you should go and check it out. But it's like usually when I have videos, it's like I can correct the bullshit. But if it's just bullshit about bullshit, there's nothing I can say about it. It's just like sit there and look at the audience and just go, "This is bullshit." Play the video.
Like what kind of thing is he trying to tie? Like what time around the time was he like trying to make this video about? Like what holiday was it?
It was. I guess I could look it up. It was
like around what time was it? Because I can probably remember which holiday it was.
Recently, it was like it was this month. It was like in January sometime.
Oh, they were.
It might have been like a saint. Oh, I was gonna say it might be like a saint feast day or something.
It was a Catholic. It was a Catholic. It was a Catholic celebration. It was a Catholic holiday.
Yeah, that explains it.
To say Saint Winebald.
Ooh. I don't know.
I mean, but if you're familiar with Catholicism, they have a saint for like every single day.
Oh yeah. And like the whole idea of saints is that you ask the saint for help, and then the saint will defer to his boss Jesus, who will then defer to God. Apparently,
exactly. So I mean, yeah. So I mean, if you can get a saint for every single day of the week, or every single day of the year, really. So,
like technically speaking, I'm a con from Mondi, so like I am confirmed as a person, so like I technically have a saint under my name, but like doesn't mean much now, does it?
Yeah. So I was just this video was just so asinine. I was just like, it's not even worth doing.
Oh yeah.
So.
I was gonna say that's the hardest thing when like you have a video that's crazy and you have to walk away from it. Because like because you want to do it, but you're just like, oh, this isn't my jam. I can't do this.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. I mean, because even if I was going to do a video for the audience, I mean, I don't even think the audience would enjoy the video because it would just be basically just me playing the video. And that's about it. Just saying, he actually believes this.
I'm just like, how do you get that? How do you get that crazy off about this? Like, I'm like, if it seems like he's just gonna start doing like saint feast days or something. Like, stop.
Well, he also believes that Catholicism is somehow wrapped up in it's part of like Satanism and the New World Order and the Illuminati. So it's like it's all like one thing. So he could make a video about anything, and it's about, you know, whatever he wants it to be, because he's made up this whole little world that he lives in. So
unfortunately, most other groups of Christianity do not like Catholics, so that doesn't really narrow down what sect of Christianity he belongs to. There are some big ones that he could be a part of, but unfortunately they are lost in the broad soup of hating Catholics.
Yeah, I don't know what branch he is. I guess it's like Hebraic Christianity or something. I mean, why doesn't
I'm wondering if he's like one of the Jews for Jesus.
Yeah, pretty much.
He wears a yarmulke.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he tries to be sort of Jewish, and he's always using like Jewish words, and you know, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just weird. It's like, if you want to be, you know, if you're really going to purify Christianity, to the cult of Christianity back to its Hebraic roots, then just become a Hebrew.
Yeah, just become Jewish, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And once you're Jewish, you'll realize that you can be nice to people.
Yeah, really, exactly. Maybe he'll develop a sense of humor if he becomes
There's a thread, and I don't know it very well because I quit paying attention to them, but I've seen it. There's a thread in modern sort of Southern Protestant, certain denominations of Christianity, where they've decided that due to a couple of parables in the Bible, that they are the real Jews, and that the Jews, that the original Jews were removed, and some of them even believe that that being a Black American makes you the real Jews. There's a couple of strains of it that I've heard from, and they do stuff like they won't eat pork. They sort of pseudo follow the dietary laws of the Old Testament and make up lots of stories of why they have to do that. But they literally do think they are the true chosen people of God. But so it's kind of mixed in with American patriotism, and they change the history of their own heredity retroactively to try to say they're the real Jews. And that they're,
oh my God.
Yeah, no, there's a movement like that. I've met people from it.
So it's only Black African Americans. What about Africans themselves?
They don't like to admit that they're still they're still full-blooded Africans on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Believe a lot of them believe that they are the original people of the North America, and that the Native Americans are not the original indigenous people of North America, but it's Black Americans that are.
And then they use the Bible as their reference to prove all of this.
Somehow. Wow. I do not I don't have a bullshit tolerance high enough to sort it out.
Right.
But I have actually seen a couple of videos, and I've met people in person, and they really do believe that they are literally they were grafted on the vine, or the other Jews were thrown off of the vine for crucifying Jesus. And so therefore they are the true chosen people of God. And yeah, I think they borrowed a couple of pages from Mormonism along the way somewhere and decided that Jesus lived in America.
I was about to say that sounds really familiar with the Mormons because of this whole war between the Nephites and Lamanites back in ancient times.
Yeah, it's kind of like a flip. It's like a 180 flip of the Mormons.
Yeah, some North American theologians were pretty clever in programming this over a period of time, like since the 60s. But it's fed into various social factions. But I don't know all the details, but I've met enough of them in public or seen their videos to get that it's out there, and they really think that that the original Americans were black, and that the Native American, the Indian tribes came later.
Wow.
But these are the same people that go to the Creationist Museum, man.
Yeah, right.
Got Jesus riding a dinosaur into Jerusalem.
The one that can't decide whether or not it's a non-for-profit or a for-profit organization keeps flipping every other month.
Yeah, didn't the Ken Ham's Noah exhibit have to close down because of threats of flood? Like there was a big rainstorm that happened.
Irony.
Yeah, right, exactly. They had to shut the place down because they were concerned it was going to get flooded.
That's crazy. And then of course, there was this whole thing with right now he's going through basically tax evasion right now with his Creation Museum, so it's fantastic.
Wow.
Well, he just got out of jail for fraud recently.
Did he?
Yeah.
I thought that was Kent Hovind.
Oh, maybe I got the wrong one. They're all part of the same group.
Yeah, they are.
Ken Ham, Kent Hovind. Who's the other guy? Guy who does Living Waters.
Ray Comfort.
Ray Comfort, yeah. They're all kind of in cahoots with each other.
Well, they were all bankrolled by one guy.
Oh, is that right?
They were all bankrolled. I don't remember his name, but there was a guy who had a lot
of
money.
John Robertson?
No. He's a business guy. He had a lot of money, and he wanted to basically invest in conservative politics and conservative religion, and he underpinned the intelligent design movement and their publications. And the guys who made the Creation Museum. There is some guy out in the West Coast who made $1 billion in business or whatever, and for his own political reasons has been basically propping up the beginnings of all of these little sort of creationist intelligent design movement con men. Wow. And then let them run as far as they can before they sort of crash and burn. And then he hires writers or whatever to help them create pseudo-scientific documents about young Earth creationism and stuff like that, and they put out pamphlets telling their followers or telling their agents how to argue logistically against science. Right. And I don't know what that guy's motivation is, but he spent millions of dollars on it.
Wow. But if you ever come across his name, please email me it, because I'd love to find out more about him.
I'm pretty sure the Rational Wiki guys know who he is. So if you go to Rational Wiki, I don't know if you've been there, but it's a hoot. They took on the whole anti-vaccine movement and the young Earth creation movement. And they've got all kinds of wonderful evidence. But those guys know who he is.
Okay.
But it would be a kind of a backtrack to figure it out. But he started doing that like 25 years ago.
Wow. I think the big reason why people with so much power in terms of money do that is because, unlike these people who are laymen who genuinely believe it, the people who are rich and powerful tend to see religion as a tool to control the masses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically. That's basically.
Yeah.
Well, the old Roman proverb is, religion is what the common people consider true, the wise men consider false, and the rulers consider useful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a proverb from the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, I've been watching a lot of Logic's Hello, My Name is Kent Hovind series.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He's, I love those series, too.
I think I remember there was a specific part where he tries to kill himself with, a gun. Mm-hmm. In the Hello, I'm a Scientist series, and he ends up killing God in the process.
Yeah, well, I think that's why he was permanently banned to hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now he lives there with Eset.
Yeah. That and Baby Beelzebub.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of crazy stuff with the communities.
Yeah, I like Logic's videos.
Yeah.
He doesn't make as many as he used to, but of course it's understandable because he's got a wife and kid now.
Oh yeah, he's got a wife and kid now, and on top of that, a lot of the stuff that he's been doing has been more focused at Islam as of recent. So
yeah.
And mind you, like, I've been gathering resources for my research in that too. So if I have anything that I need to look up for any of my Christian holy shit episodes, I have about 6 or 7 different Bibles to choose from.
Now, this holy shit which channel is that on?
It's on my main channel. I've just been trying to get motivated to actually write my script.
Now, when was, because I think I'm subscribed to your channel. When was the last time you put out a video?
A long ass time ago. That's my answer.
Oh, okay. So it's nothing you've been putting out recently.
No, I haven't been putting anything out recently, mostly because of nervousness and school.
Okay, well, that's all right. That's okay. It's weird because sometimes I'll go to somebody's channel and I'll watch their video and I will be unsubscribed from it. I'm like, what the fuck? And so I'll hit subscribe to it. So I don't know if like maybe I accidentally clicked the subscribe button a second time and I get unsubscribed. Or
sometimes if you don't watch videos or they don't produce content, then YouTube will try to automatically unsubscribe you from channels you don't watch often. It's bullshit.
Okay. Because I'll be like, okay, wait a second. I know I was subscribed to this person. Why am I now unsubscribed? So, okay. All right. Okay, well, good. So I thought maybe that was the case with you. I thought that, you were putting out videos and I wasn't seeing them because I wasn't subscribed to you.
No, I was just lazy.
But okay, that's all right.
It's not
okay.
Right,
yeah. I'm subscribed to you. Yeah, your channel is Kenny's Quest.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. I'm still subscribed to you. All right, well, good.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because it's like really weird. It's like you're unsubscribed from somebody.
Yeah, and then I think one of the ones that I tried to put up for holy shit that was just like a random one was I tried to pick on a small fry, and I really shouldn't have tried to pick on a small fry. I'm just not going to do that anymore. There was this guy who...
What do you mean pick on a small fry?
You know how, in terms of things, like, on one hand, you're supposed to debunk someone, but you can also be kind of playful, a little bit irreverent. That's what I mean by that, is that, like, there was this guy, he has, like, maybe 20 subscribers at most, and he puts out this video about how transgender people are, like, demon-infested, and, like, it was perfectly fine, except then he introduced actual photos that he took of the person while they were in the gym. He pissed me off when he did that. I was like, okay, that's going a step too far. Like, you can have your opinion. I don't agree with your opinion, but don't take pictures of people without their permission.
I don't think you're supposed to take pictures in most gyms.
Yeah, I know. And like I posted on pretty much every social media platform that I had. Like, I put out an alert about that sort of thing. I was like, okay, guys, if you know who this person is by these blurry images, please tell them that there was someone stalking them at the gym.
Yeah. Well, I don't consider it like picking on people. I mean, I think if somebody's just like, if somebody has an opinion you don't agree with, there's nothing wrong with like making a video saying I don't agree with you.
I mean, I have this habit of doing something where I don't choose my battles wisely. So like I'll if someone says something inflammatory, I'm going to say at least one inflammatory thing back, and I'm going to throw fire back. So like a lot of people are like, you need to be conservative with who you talk to in terms of arguing and debating with people. And I'm like, I am a scrappy person. You will not do this to me. I will fight whoever I want.
That's free will, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but it just sounds like, I mean, it just sounds kind of slimy what this guy's doing, because you shouldn't be taking pictures of. First of all, you shouldn't be taking pictures of strangers, and putting them up on YouTube, and definitely not in a gym, you know.
Yeah, he threatened to wrestle me. He threatened to wrestle me, and then he also threatened to he also told me that he went into theology because he thought that religious studies was too pagan. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? What does that mean? I'm pretty sure that theology is much more, all things considered.
It's hilarious how people think that there was some kind of like pagan world. Like they ran around calling themselves pagans, and like, on maps there was like pagan land, and like people spoke like a pagan language. There was no group. Today we have this, we kind of like give these pre-Christian cultures the label of pagan, but back then there were pre-Christian cultures, and a lot of the I'm sure Christianity adopted a lot of the cultures around them that weren't part of the cult of Christianity. But it's just funny whenever people talk about how, Christianity was too pagan. It's like, no, it's it's never been too pagan.
And like even back in like ancient times before the whole before Christianity was even a thing, like the concept of pagan had nothing to do with like non-Christians, because of course Christianity didn't exist. So the idea of pagans was basically the same as calling someone, if you're going to use it in a derogatory sense, it would be the same thing as calling someone a country bumpkin. Like,
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
because a lot of the
Yeah.
people
Yeah. Exactly.
were just like rural,
Mm-hmm.
which is where a lot of the pagan traditions ended up surviving for a time, because um, urban areas were usually the areas that got Christianized a lot easier.
Yeah, those city leaders wanted their share of the trade networks that Christianity
yeah.
was really a commercial empire.
Yeah.
And it was also something that I've noticed from the histories is that if you look at the spread of Christianity across especially Northern Europe and North Africa, it was the tribal chiefs who stood to make a lot of money off of trade and who really wanted the local priesthood off their back, that were limiting their behavior in a sort of a federated government kind of way. They had their own checks and balances between the priests and the chiefs. And by adopting Christianity, the chief also became the head merchant, and he disposed of having his power limited by the local religion. And so what you'll see is the first ones to convert to Christianity was always the king or always the chief. And then it would slowly trickle its way through the merchant classes or whatever. And sometimes, like in Ireland, there were centuries before the population in general, or in Scandinavia, it never really finished. The country population or the general population never fully converted, or it took centuries for it to happen. But the country was officially Christian, which meant they were hooked into the Christian trade network.
Right.
So it was about
and it's like, especially with what I've learned about certain Roman Catholic holidays like Lent. Lent was a huge commercial thing. It had it had more to do with the commercial fish trade than anything else. And as a result, I like to refer to it as Lent, the very first Hallmark holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where the church found itself in the position of having to be both having to play too many roles. And I've talked with over the years, I've talked with like Jesuit priests about this, and they kind of confirmed, from their point of view, that the church found itself in the position of also having to provide economic direction and secular government, which really don't blend well with the spiritual center, but that was what they were stuck with. But so it was very easy for them to say, well, the fishing industry is lagging, so we'll just tell people they need to eat fish on Friday or fish during Lent, and that'll boost up the economy of the fishing industry, because it was one of the tools in their toolbox.
The good thing that I like about a lot of the mainstream things nowadays is that they do put a little more focus on education. Like Roman Catholics put a focus on education. Generally speaking, Protestants do. I know that Mormons definitely put a huge focus on education, but some of the smaller groups tend not to, and it kind of bugs me. Like again, recently I've been watching a lot of John Cedars, and he's an ex Jehovah's Witness, and he talks about how there's a constant desire for members to avoid higher education, mostly because like the entire idea of Jehovah's Witnesses is that like everything that isn't Jehovah's Witness related is part of Satan's world.
Right.
Everything, even what they call apostate Christendom.
Wow, that's just
So like, they have a huge hatred for Catholics.
Yeah. See, that's the other thing. That's the other thing that, like, when I was growing up, when I was really young, and I started kind of like thinking about, God and the universe and everything, life and death, and about that. And then I also sort of had an idea of what Christianity and Catholicism was. And it was kind of like, you weren't supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to have faith and supposed to believe. And that was the other thing that I just didn't understand. I was like, okay, well, wait a second. So if some entity made everything, made the universe and everything, wouldn't that entity want you to explore everything? Explore his world that he created? So that was the other thing that I never understood, that another part of some forms of Christianity was that there was a huge blind spot that you had to like develop.
It was even worse in Islam, because Islam was totally pro-science for 700 years.
Oh, wow.
Up until the 11th century. And then the Imams took over and turned it into complete anti-science.
Yeah, which is amazing when you think about it, because they gave us arithmetic and Arabic and
and they preserved the Greco-Roman ancient culture, because they had a general desire to preserve history in general.
Yep.
Yeah, they borrowed more than they invented, but they were good at transmitting it and preserving it. I mean, most things like that, the algebra and the mathematics and geometry that they preserved or sent back to Europe after the Dark Ages mostly originated from India and Greece. But up until the Imams took over, up until they went fundamentalist, they were keeping all that alive, and they would have public debates in the square of Mecca between, atheists, or what they call doubters, and people of various religions, and they had an open dialogue about it.
Yep.
And then after they went fundamentalist, well, I think to date there has been exactly 0 Nobel Prize awards in science to any Arabic Muslim.
Yeah, which is a shame. Yeah. So that was the one I was looking for. It was algebra. But yeah, and I actually had this thought the other day, and maybe one of you knows the answers to this. But who invented the concept of zero? And was that the Egyptians?
India.
Oh, it was India. Okay, India.
India and algebra and chess all came from India.
Okay.
Or the zero. I'm sorry, the zero and algebra, the game of chess all came from India, because they don't have a fundamentalist thing. They believe in exploring the world. They have Nautilus shells showing the golden ratios and the Fibonacci sequence on their holy statues.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that the other night. I was thinking, who invented the zero? Because I know for a long time there was no idea of zero, and it really revolutionized mathematics, having the idea of nothing. I mean, it seems like such a small concept, but it had such a huge impact.
Yeah, that came out of India. It came out of the scholars there. And they were exploring the natural world very effectively, until actually at one point they kind of got their advances shut down by fundamentalist Hinduism with the caste system, and they stopped making advances. Right. And so it moved to another area.
Now, was India also the ones who came up with the idea of like negative numbers, like -1, -2? Or was that somebody else?
That I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's a modern historical development.
Okay, yeah, so that's more modern.
The idea of doing math, I know I've seen this in one of the science videos or education videos I've watched, but the idea of doing math with negative numbers was not until later in the medieval period.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's just really fascinating how sometimes even the simplest things can just have such a revolutionary impact. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the Muslim world was so advanced, and then all of a sudden, like it seems like overnight, the imams just took everything down, and they just really just their whole civilization just started going downhill. I mean, I think they were more advanced than the Western society at that time.
Yeah, they were. Up until the 11th century, they had intercontinental trade, they had science, they were doing astronomy, they were doing mathematics, and then they turned the world over to their version of Bill Schnoebelen and Dave Carrico.
And it all went to shit.
Yeah, literally.
Oh boy.
There's some talks about this from Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you look up some of his videos like unintelligent design or stupid design,
okay,
or naming rights, he does some videos. Since he's an astronomer or an astrophysicist, he actually tracked the progress of cultures as they went through their scientific peaks and then crashed. And his concern, and a lot of people's concern, is that if we can't get past this fundamentalist bulge of the last few decades in the United States, that the U.S. is the next one to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Congress.
It's really interesting because, like, when you look at Galileo Galilei, I mean, like when he introduced the idea of the heliocentric model of the universe to I forget which pope it was at the time, the church was actually not in disagreement with him. Their problem with him was when he began to interpret scripture and tell them what it meant. But at that point in time, they weren't really, it wasn't considered heretical. It was still part of doctrine, and they weren't really fighting him on that. And so, I mean, it's really interesting that that knowledge and stuff like that doesn't have to interfere with scripture. If anything, I think scripture would actually support a lot of advancements in thinking, advancements in exploration, advancements in looking at the world for what it actually is,
Yeah, there's two factions in the Catholic Church, in the Roman Catholic Church. One is the faction that tries to preserve the might, majesty, history, and authority of the church, and the other is the one that's trying to educate and lead the people into the future. And if you piss off their sort of fundamentalists,
right,
they'll do horrible things to you.
Yeah.
But if you avoid bumping heads with them, the other faction will actually, fund your research or let you do what you do. I mean, for example, the guy who first proposed the Big Bang Theory of the universe was a Catholic priest.
Yep.
and at the time, that was secular scientists who didn't like that theory, disapproved of it because they thought it was too theological.
Right.
And in modern days, it's like it's completely flip-flopped.
Yep, exactly.
Because the scientists will come around and go, yeah, we were wrong. He was right. Didn't matter that he was first. Whereas the fundamentalists go, no, you are all wrong forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. I forget the name of that priest, but you're right. It was a Catholic priest who came up that concept.
Yeah, he was.
And then of course,
go ahead.
And then we had this. And then of course, like the whole thing with Galileo was that part of the reason why the church didn't necessarily disapprove of the heliocentric model with him was because Copernicus had thought of it like almost 200 years prior to him. So like.
Right. And then even before that, I think there was Aristophanes. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, the knowledge has been there. But, I mean, my whole point to that was if depending upon how a priest interprets scripture, it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible really that, the it has to be geocentric. We have to be at the center of the universe. That was just how scholars had interpreted the Bible up until that point. But the Pope was ready to accept the Galileo's concept. It was just that he was actually trying to interpret scripture for them, and so they sort of like had to say, "Wait a second, this is our book. We are the I'm the conduit between humans and God." So
yeah, up until the Protestant Reformation, and a little bit past that, even Catholics were really not keen about the laity having any sort of access to the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's why they wrote all their Bibles. Why they wrote all their Bibles in Latin was that so that even if the person was literate, they still wouldn't be able to read it.
Well, given the contents of the book and the clergy knew it had to be cherry picked for the moment and for the issue. And so you could say that it was actually a pretty good act of judgment not to have it publicly known, the entire contents publicly known, because it would lead people to do things like witch hunts.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then a lot of the imagery you see in churches even today, kind of like there's an illustrated story of the Bible. So, yeah. I mean, a lot of people up until the 16th, 17th century are illiterate.
We started having market improvements as the printing press was made.
Yes, exactly. And then the two most popular two books that were mostly printed were. First one was a Bible, and the second one was Malleus Maleficarum.
Yeah, the Hammer of the Witches.
Yep.
That sounds like an epic tale about a guy who finds a really awesome magic hammer. I just want to remake that book and make it I want to take that book and turn it into something good, because that was a terrible book. Yeah. It's, I guess, an important historical book, but it's bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, bad stuff happens in history. You still have to remember.
Oh, yeah. And it's important that we have a memory of bad stuff in history, even if we don't want to remember and we're ashamed of it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're, what is the old saying? If you condemn history or forget history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. It's those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to strengthen your weaknesses, because if you only strengthen your strengths, you have grip. It's like the story of Achilles' heel. It's the same old wisdom. If you leave this empty spot that you don't know is your weakness and you ignore it, eventually you're going to get bit.
Yep.
Right there.
Exactly.
You're going to get shot with an arrow and you're going to fucking die.
Right in the ankle.
Right.
The Greeks had this, long ago also. They had the idea of the well-rounded person.
Mm-hmm.
The circular man, they called it, which is very much what a lot of modern paganism and Wicca is about creating a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
This is not any kind of new revelation. It's something that people have been pursuing for a very long time.
Especially because a lot of the well-rounded men in Greco-Roman culture were viewed as heroes in a lot of these stories. They were these typical heroes. You have, of course, Achilles, who for the most part was well-rounded, but he also had a hubris in that he had a fatal flaw with his ankle.
Right, so he was mostly invulnerable.
Yeah, mostly invulnerable.
That leaves you open to that one thing. Right. I think from my point of view, the point of spiritual and esoteric development is to look for those weaknesses and round them out.
Could you imagine if all the various pagan beliefs that we have today, if we became really adamant and evangelical about them, we started spouting off that this was absolute truth? There is a world tree at the center of the universe. Odin did hang upside down for 7 days.
There is a snake who is eating the tree.
Yeah, or one of my favorites. One of my favorites is the story of the wolf eating the moon.
Mm-hmm.
which
Oh my God.
and people like anthropologists who are such curse word snobs will say that the people of ancient Scandinavia actually thought when there was a lunar eclipse that the moon was being eaten, or during a solar eclipse that the sun was actually being eaten. You know, and these are guys who've never been out in the countryside at night. You know, you can literally, during a lunar eclipse, you can see the moon the whole time. You can see it go into phase, go through the darkness, come out of phase, especially on a blood moon. And during a solar eclipse, that always happens on a new moon. You can literally see the moon going across the daytime sky until it crosses in front of the sun, and then see it go away. And so it's a really cool experience. But for people who grew up in the countryside looking at the sky, clearly they did not literally believe these stories because they could see what was actually happening. You know, it's only some city kid who's never seen the sky at night or never watched the moon during the day because they're stuck between two giant buildings in Manhattan or something, who would think that anyone in the countryside of Scandinavia took that literally. You know, from my point of view, those are pedagogical stories. Those are the little story. Those are campfire stories you make up for the kids.
Right.
Like, it's the same thing with like pretty much any story about Loki. Like, a lot of it is going to be this. Listen, it's this thing of, this is why there's chaos in the world. This is why these creatures do not obey us.
Mm-hmm. It's not allegory, damn it. It's literal.
Yeah. There really was a 10-legged horse.
Exactly.
Or it was a 10-wheeled alien Land Rover.
Oh my God. So I'm in one of my classes, and it's my first religious studies course at the university, and I'm with Professor Holstein, who he retired. Bless him, because frankly he was the best teacher ever, because he went from talking about theological stuff to talking about like the sexuality of women for some reason. Like, he would go back and forth between like religion and sexuality. And so we would talk over a long time, and one of the things that he talked about is you got to take a step back and you have to look at the Bible and stop thinking of it as this very big source of things, because the reason why people think that people want it to be literally true is because they want the impossible to be possible. And ultimately that means they want to cheat death. The entire point of these, so he basically boiled it down to, the entire reason why these literalists exist is because they are afraid to die.
Yeah, but that's just that's like an oversimplification. I think
it's an oversimplification, but it's definitely something that's there. And
I
like
agree.
it definitely doesn't help that like later on he was also saying you also need to stop taking it as this like big source of wisdom. Like, you also have to read it like it's a farce. Like, you have to read it the same way that you'd read a bedtime story like Pinocchio. Like, you can't take it as this a holy book. And like, I think that was a really fresh perspective, because it meant that I didn't have to look at it as this absolutely true beacon of things, and I could actually enjoy the literary brilliance that was in it, because it's jam-packed full of irony. There's so much irony.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and then of course there's all these different things, and like one of the things that he was like, okay, so I'm gonna tell you how stupid this angel that's guarding the tree of life is. He's like, okay, so imagine creature that has 4 heads. It has, I think it's like the eagle, the lion, the man, and like I can't remember the fourth one. It was like a goat or something.
Bull.
It was a bull? Okay.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, you have that. You have this guy with a sword. Now you have him with 2 sets of wings. One of them is out and open. The other is covering his private parts.
Okay.
And then he says, and here's the best part, and I'm not making this up. They can only move they can only move along a vertical or a horizontal axis. They cannot go diagonally because they have, not even joking, on the bottom of their legs, I'm dead serious here, they have a set of wheels.
Chariots, yeah.
Yeah, it's a four-headed winged thing with a set of wheels on the bottom, literally with a sword. And he's like, that's what's funny, is that even though it faces all four directions, there's actually a really simple way of getting to the tree of life, because it can only go one direction at a time.
Yeah, I've seen. I forget exactly what that's from, but there's actually a Bible passage that describes those.
This is from Ezekiel.
Is it? Okay, yeah, it's from Ezekiel. Yeah.
Ezekiel was eating Amanita muscaria, man.
Yeah, really.
And he was still early enough that Middle Easterners remembered the concept of spirit animals, their shamanic past. So it was like the blending over from one to the other. And so that you kind of get a mixture of like power animals guarding the throne of heaven, you know, like totem spirits, mixed in with their love of chariots as a way to project power, mixed in with chomping on psychedelic mushrooms.
Right. Yeah. So that thing was. I think it also gave rise to the four archangels. And so one was represented by the eagle, another by lion, by a man, and then by a bull. They were all winged creatures.
Yeah, and like I've been wanting to undertake this project for forever, but I'm gonna do like cross referencing, and I think that my big scholarly project is to produce a version of the Bible that is completely farcical, so that it can be read with at least a little bit of humor. Because like there's this part that I want to write where like God is revealing himself to Aaron and Miriam, and he comes down in a cloud of smoke. And he's like, I'll show you what I really look like. He comes down in a cloud of smoke. And he's like, and of course, like, Moses is like, are you fucking kidding me? Because you're like, you're going to show us, but why are you in the smoke? And then, of course, like, the best part of the entire thing is Moses coming down from the mountain, and he flips open his hood. And, like, because he has lightning, he basically has a lightning tattoo on his forehead, and he starts, whenever he looks at people and they look back at him, like it strikes lightning on them and they die. So he covers his head up and goes back up the mountain. Disappears for another 40 days.
Well, because he smashed the first set of tablets. So he had to go get new tablets.
And it really didn't help that he had to keep his head covered, because if he didn't, then lightning would strike anyone he stared at.
Yeah, a lot of those stories were blended with earlier Mesopotamian patriarchal stories, so they get a little funny when you blend them together. You know, and the guys who were writing the version that ended up in the modern Bible, or ended up translated into the modern Bible, they were adapting earlier symbols that people knew into their current era. You know, so they were making references. They were making, in some case, Monty Python references, but they were making heroic references that their people would know.
Right.
That when you go another 2,500 years down the pipe, we're like, what the heck are you talking about? It's because we don't have those stories in our daily life, because they were.
It's kind of like us and emojis today.
Yeah. It's kind of the important reason why we have things like with my things with Bibles, like a lot of the classes that I have are with Holstein, and he'll usually require that we read, we have the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh that we have to read, because those were two of the most important texts that the Hebrew Bible had to compete with at the time.
What texts were those? I spaced a second.
The Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about the first one.
Gilgamesh is at the root of the whole Western arm of mysticism and patriarchal stories.
The Enuma Elish is more of a, I'd say it's best described as a creation myth.
No. Which culture is it from?
I think it might have been Mesopotamian. Can't quite
Gilgamesh
remember.
was definitely from the from Euphrates and Tigris region. It was from Iraq, 5,000 years ago.
It's Babylonian.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Enuma Elish is a Babylonian creation myth, and it's this understanding of it's this understanding of how the world was created by Marduk plunging his spear into his lover Tiamat. Basically, it's definitely one of the earlier versions of the biblical creation myth. It actually has some amazing parallels because it also uses the concept of the broad face of the waters. But it was actually one of the most important texts that I had to read in conjunction with that. And then for some reason, we also had to read the Old Man in the Sea.
The Old Man in the Sea. Okay.
We had to read that one.
There.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was best described as this understanding, because I think the class that we had to take with that was called Quest for Human Destiny, and we were talking about like meaning of life types of things, and the Old Man in the Sea has a huge thing about meaning of life with it.
Have you ever read Lemure the Arthur?
I have not.
It's very dry. And it's filled with all kinds of like old English sayings, but it's fun. I mean, it's good to read, but you know, it's pretty funny. It's kind of dry too, though. But I remember I think
there's also the death. There's also the death of Ivan Ilyich.
Oh, I hated that one. Oh, I hated
it too, but I got through it.
You talk about pompous, pretentious, over-metaphorical, symbological, going too far to reach a point. Holy shit, the guy fell on something and damaged his liver, and then he croaked. Everything else about it is nothing but literary pretension. That's the one story from that author that I totally hated.
Which book is that?
The Death of Ivan Ilyich. It is so overdone.
Isn't it by Tolstoy?
And I know I like some of his other work, but that one was like him being so self-indulgent. Oh my God.
I don't think I ever read that.
Don't.
Not worth it, huh?
Yeah, it's by Leo Tolstoy. Like, Tolstoy's a literary genius. It's just that story sucks.
Sometimes he could fall down his own belly button. And Ivan Ilyich was when he went down his own belly button way too far, came out his own ass. I've read some other stories from him, you know, granted they're translations, but, you know, I've read other stories from him, like Lady with Lapdog, that were kind of brilliant in the way they were kind of symbolic of the social ideas of the day.
Okay.
You know, he was like kind of like he was into using the symbols of the story of physical objects or his events as representing aspects of people's lives, and the the interactions, very allegorical.
Yeah.
Ivan Ilyich was him going way too far up his own ass.
So I'll skip that one.
Anyway, you can tell I was traumatized by that in high school literature.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading some books and just like going, oh my, how, you know, I could never understood why some of these authors became so popular. Like this one book, I couldn't remember who it was, who I read. But it was like, you know, describing something and then like getting caught up describing something else, so that they're then describing some little small detail, and then they come back to this and come back to the story, and you're just like, okay, why did they go into this little tangent describing that one little thing? It made no sense to me.
Yeah, it's pretty much they were high. And they were complete, you know, because artists will be enormously self-indulgent if you let them.
Yes. Exactly.
So sometimes they do. And you can be all impressed with how clever Finian's Wake is. Right. But the truth is the guy was writing nothing but gibberish that he'd invented for himself over a period of years. Somehow, to be a proper student of literature, you're supposed to read all his books, memorize every stupid little word he made up, and then memorize every way that they evolved into the next book.
Right.
And it's a way of saying that you're supposed to be as self-indulgent as this morphine-addled asshole who wrote it. And at some point, I call bullshit. If you want to communicate, it's your job to communicate.
There was a time in my early 20s where I really felt like I had to like these books, and it was like, no, I didn't have to read those famous books. I didn't enjoy it.
You know, I liked reading Frank Herbert because he was making equally deep thoughts, but he was putting them in a story that you could follow the plot of, and with characters that could at least make sense from the point of view of the reader. And
I love science fiction writers like Spider Robinson and
Spider Robinson,
yeah,
Callahan's Cross Times.
Yeah, I mean, I loved all those science fiction guys. Science fiction, because that's exciting. That was exciting to read. You know, you can visualize it. I love that.
I think one of my favorites was recently I had to do Victorian literature, and one of the things that I had to do was, I think it was Under the Knife. And I think that was Under the Knife by H.G. Wells.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it either, but I like H.G. Wells.
Yeah, I thought I'd read everything he wrote, but I guess not.
Yeah, Under the Knife is a short story, and it's basically he takes a moment where a character is having a surgery done and stretches it out into an entire short story. It's kind of like, I think there's another one by another author called Bullet to the Brain, and it's literally, the entire thing is him reliving all of his memories right before he dies from taking a bullet in the brain.
See, in a short story, that's fair. You can play that game for 25 or 35 pages. Mm-hmm. You can't play that game for 400 pages.
I mean, I don't know about that. What's funny is that on the book that I had to read was called The Death of Young Werther or something. I can't remember what it was called. But it was basically this. It's called The Sorrows of Young Werther. And the basic gist of it was that there's this guy, he's pompous, he just broke up with his girlfriend. He falls in love with this person, realizes that she already has a fiancé. He tries to win her affections and ultimately fails. And then he goes back to his apartment, and that's when you realize that the entire book is a 65-page suicide note.
Wow.
Like, it goes from, like, I'm happy about my life. Whoever the lady I was dating before, she was a crazy bitch. I don't want her. Oh, who's this chick? And then, and then, like, after a while, it just turns into a freaking suicide note, and I'm like, holy shit.
There is some psychological legitimacy to that process.
Oh, no, like, people were so in love with that book that people actually started emulating Werther in terms of their clothing and their style. And I think some people actually did end up with that attitude too, and they ended up dying because of it. So it's kind of like the emo phase of the late of that century.
What was it like during the Bohemian phase?
I want to say it was let me see, The Sorrows. Yeah. The Sorrows of Young Werther was first published in 1774. So it was like during that specific craze of like, it was pre-Victorian, but people were really into that. So, like, it got really weird because, like, people would be like super snobby about love and shit like that, and I'm like, people are getting so pretentious, it's not even funny. He's like one of the characters that people tried to emulate for years.
Interesting. I think Animus had to step out for a moment. Let's see, I'm going to post the link in the chat one more time if anybody else wants to join us.
Yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte considered it one of the great works of European literature.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's just so many books out there. And I
Oh,
don't
the
know.
book reputedly also led to some of the first known examples of copycat suicide. Okay, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, the men were often dressed in the same clothing as Goethe's description of Werther and using similar pistols. That's crazy. Often the book was found at the scene of the suicide. What the heck? Oh, man. Yeah, I had to read that book. Oh my god, that book made me depressed.
Which book is this?
That made me... The Sorrows of Young Werther.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah. It's really not that long. You could probably read it within a few hours, but if you're not used to reading long-winded things, then you're gonna have a tough time.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day. I don't read as much as I used to because I spend more time on the computer doing research for stuff. But but I mean it's still nice to like go back and look at a book and look something up. But I have so many things on PDF now, so I can just like copy from a PDF so I can copy and paste. Rather than like going back and getting a book and like sitting there typing out a whole paragraph if you're going to quote something. It's like so much easier just to access a PDF rather than reading a book. But there's something.
I think it's a lot
missing.
easier when you're online too, because you can find scholarly articles, and if they're lucky enough to have an HTML format, you can actually Control F to go and find the specific section you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can look for stuff and find out where.
So much faster.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes, like if you do, if you do copy something from a PDF, you have to look at it and go, okay, well, wait a second, is that right? Is that a direct quote? And sometimes, I'll have to compare it with the actual book to make sure it's correct.
I remember I was reading through I was reading the recent Scott Cunningham books that I was working on, and part of the thing that I was looking at, and it kind of made me chuckle just a little bit, was he mentioned cassettes, and that's when I realized how long ago it was written.
Yes.
And it amazes me because I barely remember cassettes.
What is that? What is cassettes?
Cassettes. Cassette tapes. Musical cassette tapes.
Oh, I remember those.
I know, yeah, you and I remember.
I think I had to buy 3 copies of The Wall because double album cassettes always got eaten up by the tape heads within a couple of months.
Yep. And then you have to get the pencil in there to wind it up.
Yeah, I remember by the pencils.
Yep.
Yeah, by the time I was a little tyke, we had the things that actually wound it back for you, so
No,
being
this
salty.
This was if the tape did get eaten. And if you were to like get garbled, if you pulled it out in time, it doesn't take out the
film
whole tape.
would come out.
Yes. So you would get a pencil in there and you'd put your thumb on the tape and put a pencil in there so it would wind it up tight.
Wind it back up.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can put it back in your cassette player.
I remember. Yeah, I do remember that. Although,
because magnetic tapes build up a static charge, so eventually they try to glue themselves to the reader head. So if you caught them in time, you'd have a copy of The Wall that only had like a 3-second garbled spot in it. But if you didn't, you would have to totally disassemble the cassette to get it the hell out of there.
Yep. And then DVDs came out, and it was like, whoa, DVDs! That was the best.
My first 3 DVDs were U2, Laurie Anderson, and I'm trying to think. It was the St. Louis Symphony doing the Nutcracker Suite.
Well, that's pretty cool.
It's amazing that I remember that. I don't remember much of that long ago, but I remember that. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the first thing that I ever had on both DVD and VHS was Shrek.
Oh, we're talking about CDs.
Oh, CDs. Okay, yes. I was gonna say like the first CD I got was like, oh, he said DVDs. I was very confused.
You know, I've gotten so old and senile, I don't remember the difference.
One's pretty much the same. But hey, Kenny, did you ever read? Have you ever read any of Gerald Gardner's books or Janet and Stuart Farrar?
I haven't been able to get my hands on any, but I have been searching.
Well, that gives you a good idea of kind of like the origins of Wicca.
Oh yeah.
If you read those books, it's really interesting. Scott Cunningham was later, you know.
Oh yeah.
Kind of late, 80s. But like Janet Stewart Farrar, they're from like the 70s, and then obviously Gerald Gardner's from like 1950s, 1960s.
Now, who was the woman who made Wicca work? Because I think her name needed.
What do you mean made Wicca work?
Well, there was this woman, because Gardner had his issues, because guys have issues, and there was.
Have to explain them.
I'm an outsider, man. I'm a shamanist. You got to help me.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gonna have to explain. What do you mean by issues?
Gardner had issues with women and gays because he was a product of his time, right?
Okay, that's your opinion. Okay, go ahead.
That's it. Well, that's the opinion of everyone that I'm trying to pick this stuff up from the outside over a period of time.
Yeah. Okay.
Doreen Valiente.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not trolling. She's this big figure in the development of Wicca in America.
You're right. I agree with you.
So Doreen Valiente was an important person. And I think she should be mentioned because a lot of Wiccans that I've known have credited her with making Wicca work in modern society where genders are equal and homosexuality isn't evil and less authoritarian. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm going to have to back up a little bit and correct some of that. Yes, you are correct. Gerald Gardner was a product of his time. And during that time, yes, I'm sure that, compared to today's standards, he was probably, actually, I don't know that. He was a product of his own time. Doreen Valiente definitely was a huge influence on Wicca. Yes, I agree with you, because she took a lot of the work that Gerald Gardner had done, especially a lot of the stuff that he borrowed from Crowley. And Doreen Valiente kind of took some of that out and then melded some of it, and really, like, she was the one who put together the charge of the goddess, which is very very famous. A lot of the great prose that we have in Wicca liturgy, definitely Doreen Valiente had a big influence on. And she was a very influential character. So she's definitely somebody who's worth the mention. However, I don't know I can't even think of anything where he would be considered to be sexist towards women. The only thing I can think of is that he's wrote in his book that a younger maiden or younger priestess should replace an older priestess. But that's his thing, whatever that is. And there was one person who wrote in her book where she claimed that she overheard Gerald Gardner say something about homosexuals that was in a negative light. I can't exactly remember what it was. So this was one thing that Gardner had said, and we don't exactly know the whole context of it, and it was somebody else that overheard it. So I think to say that he was against homosexuals based entirely upon that one little sentence, I don't think it's completely fair. I think that Gerald Gardner and Doreen Valiente and most of the people who came up from that time period were very revolutionary. The whole idea of a god and a goddess was completely heretical. You know, the concept that there would be even a goddess or even a priestess was insane. You know, it was just like, you know, women in clergy. How could that be? So they were pretty revolutionary for their time, you know. So anyhow, I just want to throw that little caveat in there. But I do agree with you. I think Dorian Valiente was very influential.
Yeah, you've studied that a lot more than I have, so I will totally give way to your scholarship on that. I mean, that's your path. But that's what I've heard from other Wiccans who were
right, exactly. But it's just, you know, I mean, you know how rumors are. They spread and then they spread and then they spread and nobody ever facts check. You know, they never look back at the source and go, what did he really say? You know, and what did he actually say about those things? And you know, people just don't. They just kind of like run with, you know, they run with the. There's kind of like this atmosphere today of this sort of, you know, who can sort of be a victim and who can we kind of, you know, virtue signal and say that we're better than other people. You know, so a lot of people they don't check facts anymore, and it's frustrating. It's a little frustrating. I mean, if we talk to him today, we'd probably go, "Oh wow, that guy's, you know, he's got some outdated ideas." But yeah, he's from like the 1910s, 1920s. But anyhow, I'll get off my soapbox now.
I was gonna say one of the things that I did this semester in terms of my coursework is we had an entire class dedicated to new religious movements. Unfortunately, paganism was kind of lumped into a huge group. We had a subset with Wicca, but it really wasn't delved into in too much detail, and I think that's because the class had a more focus on gender and sexuality in different religious contexts with new religious movements, and because of that we mostly focused on the understanding duality with the context of paganism and Wicca. So that's what I have so far, but I think this upcoming class, which is my senior seminar, we're going to probably we're going to look over that again in a completely different, more historical and more based. It's going to be more based on the history and on the critical questions surrounding each movement. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it is kind of a shame that, like, you know, everything gets lumped under one umbrella, and unfortunately, yeah, I think Wicca gets, you know, the lion's share of the attention because, you know, it's so popular and there's so many people. But yeah, I mean, the Druid movement is amazing. It's been growing for a long time. That's where we get the four major holidays was from the Druid tradition, and then shaman traditions like Animus is a part of. There's a lot of shaman traditions, and then there's a lot of other pagan traditions that, you know, they have their own separate beliefs and their own practices, and then you have other people who are, you know, practicing non-Wiccan witchcraft traditions. And I agree. I think that a lot of those get sort of lumped into this big pile, and I don't think it's exactly fair because I feel that you can't really lump together, like, let's say a Greek paganism with modern Wicca and, you know, Norse animist tradition. It just doesn't really, I mean, yes, I guess you could sort of say they're all pagan related, but they're completely separate. You know?
Like, they're geographically separate, they're ethnically separate. There's just
exactly. Even belief wise, they're completely separate, you know?
Yeah, because they might have different holidays too.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, with Greco-Roman culture, you have something like Saturnalia, which a lot of people with Yule, they'll only celebrate it on the solstice, whereas with Saturnalia, it actually goes on for about a week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does lead up to the solstice, but it usually goes on for the week of the solstice.
Mm-hmm.
Can I bring up Tyson again? Can I bring up astronomy again with that?
Absolutely not.
Okay, never mind. He made he made an interesting observation as an astrophysicist about Yule, and because he's agnostic / science, secular, whatever, but he doesn't like to step on religious people because he's trying to be a science educator. But he pointed something out. Astronomically, when you look at these traditional cultures, they were very good at charting the descent of the sun along the horizon line until it sort of got to its bottom, and that was where your solstice was. But it takes a few days before you can really see it going back up.
Right.
You're watching carefully, and that's why a lot of these solstice traditions go on for 3 days or a week. And the other reason is once, when people had to walk and ride donkeys and stuff to get together for a big festival, by the time you put all the work into getting there, you might as well hang out and have a party for a while because it took you a week to get there to start with. So there's no reason to have a 1-day party and then just turn around and run straight back home because you already brought all the provisions together. And so exactly. I think there's a lot of allowable sort of slop in those kind of festivals, just because of the conditions under which people were celebrating them in traditional times.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it was also a way of building community. You make relationships. Maybe, maybe your daughter, your son marries another person who's an important person in another tribe. And I mean, a lot of those things were more. All right. So this is my opinion. I have a strong opinion that a lot of ancient cultures, pre-Christian traditions, like what we're trying to reconstruct today, a lot of those were more about building community and alliances than they were really about religious, actual religious observations of particular deities. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Joy Lynn would agree with you on that. The druid, Droylin, I can't remember his name.
Yeah. I know who you're talking. Okay, yeah.
And he's big on that too. And at some point, in order to avoid line breeding or inbreeding, you got to give the young people enough time to figure out who they might want to pair up with, so that you got some marriages going on between one village and another, instead of everybody just marrying their cousin until they only had one tooth and played the banjo.
See, I think that's why it's kind of weird with Lithuanians, because apparently I found out that because the general migration of people to Lithuania was low for the longest time, the entire population ended up basically preserving very old human DNA from centuries ago.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of an isolated region.
Right back.
That little area, because it's a lot easier to go around it by boat than it is to walk through it because of the topography.
I sometimes tell Ben when I'm going too slow, honey, you can't blame me. I'm 1/4 fossil.
Well, and part of my ancestry is Arctic indigenous people who, were basically alone in the Arctic Circle for a few thousand years before Indo-Europeans ever showed up. And then so there are legitimate genetic issues with founder effect and stuff like that among them. And that's just the fact they were the first people to figure out how to survive above the Arctic Circle of Scandinavia and Russia. And so they were kind of alone on their, up there herding their reindeer and harvesting kelp bulbs up there, living their lives. And eventually, when enough of the glaciers melted, then other people made contact with them. But they did have similar issues. They represent some very old mingling of a couple of different strands. And there are still some issues to be dealt with as a result.
Well, I think I'm going to start to kind of wrap this up. I'm still kind of getting over this. I thought I had a cold a while ago, and I thought I was getting over it, and then all of a sudden it hit me again today, or sort of you started feeling it come on last night. So I don't know if it's the cold coming back or if it's another cold I got.
Have you tried soup?
Yeah, I have. I actually made some soup a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because soup actually does have things in it that will help.
Chicken soup, right?
Yeah, chicken noodle soup. It's surprising because people used to think, oh, it's an old wives' tale. Turns out it's actually true.
Yeah. There's also this other thing that I make. It's ginger, lemon, and honey, and you just mix it with some hot water, and you drink that. That's good for you, and also it helps if
Oh,
you
yeah.
have a sore throat and a cough.
Throw a vial of red Penx ginseng into that. It's an anti-exhaustant and it boosts your immune system in general.
Oh, okay.
Something from if you go to your like Chinese grocery store, they'll have these like rectangular boxes with like 10 vials of red Penx ginseng. Don't abuse them. But if you're making it's kind of sweet. But if you throw a little of that, and if you have access to it, a little royal jelly, and throw that into your broth.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of the broth is just you're rehydrating yourself because everybody runs around dehydrated.
Right.
But so if you're working hard and you're doing a lot of hours and you're also trying to fight off an infection, throw some Penx ginseng and some royal jelly, if you can get a hold of it, into your chicken broth, and that will bolster your general immune system in a direction that will allow it to fight harder, longer, and stave off exhaustion. So that's one thing.
Okay.
And then the other thing for boosting your immune system in general, that's also pretty safe, is when you get in your shower and you do your shower thing, and then you got to do whatever cleaning, washing, whatever you do. And then after that, after you've done your shampooing and whatever, get the water as hot as you can stand it,
mm-hmm.
and stand backwards to the flow of the stream. This is all Chinese medicine. Mm-hmm. Stand backwards to the stream, dip your head back into the stream of the shower to where it's like hitting your hairline and cascading down the back of your scalp and down the nape of your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of slowly rock a little forward.
Right, to kind of loosen the mucus in the lungs.
Kind of, but and then run the hot water on the back of your head and down the nape of your neck. Like there's like 2 channels on either side of your upper neck bones. I'm trying not to use technical terms. And run it as long and hot as you can without burning yourself until you feel like your head is like expanding with energy, is the only way I can describe it.
Okay.
And this has the effect of boosting your immune response. And so those 2 things, if you add them to your routine, you may find that they generally boost your metabolism and help you fight off what's running you down. Those things are kind of anti-rundown techniques.
Okay.
If you use them too much, you can actually exhaust your immune system. But, it's like a home remedy treatment based on Chinese medical principles. Those are safe things you can do.
Okay. So
super complicated.
Okay. So red ginger and royal jelly and
ginseng. Red Penx, Panax. Ginseng.
Oh, ginseng.
Yeah. The red Penx ginseng is a very strong metabolic booster. If you overuse it, you can run yourself into exhaustion and find yourself with pneumonia. Some people get high on this stuff and suck it down until they've, gone 2 nights without sleep.
Okay.
But if you're making yourself your restorative, herbal and chicken broth soup, throw a vial of that in there. If you've got access to royal jelly, which can also be gotten in some herbal or Asian.
I've seen that before. So
throw a shot of that in there because that has some really cool antibiotic effects and also does some other cool things for your body. Those 2 things thrown in there, maybe a little spice to generally stimulate your body, and that will help your body's natural white blood cell production. I'm a little tired. So your antiviral system kind of zoom up, and the hot water down the back of the skull from like the top of the head down the back of the neck until you feel like you're being like almost turbocharged. That combination of things will usually get your body into the mode where it beats the shit out of any virus that's coming after it.
Okay.
I haven't had a cold or the flu for 16 years.
Okay.
And I rarely have to get into all of that. And the other cheap and easy alternative is get a big bottle of those chewable vitamin C's and chow a few thousand milligrams of vitamin C, because it turns your blood into acid, and viruses hate that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, viruses don't like pH changes. And so if you just chew like every other hour, chew 500 milligrams of vitamin C chewable, that will actually alter your body's pH, and it fucks with the virus's ability to replicate themselves. And that's modern science. So there you go. There's a plethora of things you can play with.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I felt it coming on last night. I was like, ah, shit, I'm going to get sick again. Uh-oh. Did I close this out? Oh no. Okay, good. You guys.
Nope.
All right.
We're still here. Don't worry.
Okay, good. All right. So I think I'm going to wrap it up, but it was fun. It was fun chatting. I should probably do this again sometime. Not just on my birthday.
Well, happy birthday, man! You survived another.
Happy birthday!
You survived another 300 million miles around the sun.
Yeah, exactly. 1 year closer.
We're up to like 1.5 billion miles or something like that.
I thought you were gonna say he survived another 300 million years. I'm like, holy crap!
Wow, how old is this guy? Survived 365 days. Or
365.25 days.
Right, exactly. 364. Is it 364.2 or 25? Because every 4 years.
It's 365.25 because every 4 years there's an extra day.
Okay. So it's 365.25. Yes.
And it doesn't help that days aren't exactly 24 hours either.
Yeah, excuse me. I leave that up to the astronomers to worry about. They add a leap second once in a while, and nobody cares.
Exactly.
Like,
all right. I think I'm going to end
this. A day is technically 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds.
Every day?
Yeah, every day. In terms of the math, good luck.
Okay.
In any case, you have a wonderful birthday, have a wonderful evening, and have a good rest of your week.
All right. Thanks, Kenny's Quest, and thank you, Animus. It was fun to hang out, and everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for your birthday wishes. I really appreciate it, and thank you all. And again, I'm gonna try to have a video out this Wednesday if I can get to it. Get myself on it. All righty. Good night, all.
Try not to overexert yourself.
Good night.
We all really, exactly, especially when I'm sick.
Good night. We all love you, man.
Thanks. Good night.
Love you. Bye.
All right, bye.